What's going on, everybody? Eric Barassa here for this week's double punk rock feature. We've got Face to Face and we've got Propagandhi. Or Propagandhi. You let me know in the comments below. How are we really supposed to say it? I always say Propagandhi, but sometimes I hear Propagandhi. Let's talk first about Face to Face's new release. I quite enjoy this album. I think it fits solidly into the Face to Face discography. It sits comfortably in there and feels like it could have been released at any point in their career. So take that, some people think that could be a bad thing. Some people say that's a great thing. But I am of the opinion that usually if a band is putting out music that I like, I usually want kind of more of the same, maybe with a few changes. So let's talk about a couple of the things on this album, No Way Out But Through, that I really like. That is something that the band kind of always does. First of all, Trevor's lyrics typically seem deeply personal, but they're never specific enough to where they can't apply to yourself. I feel like they're kind of universal in that they're themes that everybody can relate to. So lyrics like, you've got to make your own breaks. And he's like, hey, you got to find your own way. You got to make your own path. And I think that's kind of like, that's awesome. That's the punk rock entrepreneurial spirit. One of the other lyrics that I really like, hold on, let me pull out my lyrics sheet here. This is one reason why I still like getting CDs. First of all, I have a pretty massive CD collection, and I don't want to start over with records, even though I know that's all the rage these days. I still use my 6 CD changer in my car, and it's a Bose sound system. I can't give that up. Anyway, but I like just getting the artwork and getting the lyrics for albums that I really love. In Vertigo, I really like the lyric, fate is cruel to everyone, but somehow I think I'm the one made an example of. And that kind of speaks to this idea that I think we all at sometimes feel like we're the victim, and that like no matter what we do, fate is making an example out of us and keeping us down, and everybody else has it made. And the reality, and I don't think Trevor believes that he's a victim, because the reality is we all kind of go through our own things. And but I think we all sometimes feel special, like we're being singled out, when in reality we know that that's not true. Finally, the other strong lyric that I think really stood out to me is in Farewell Song. But all I ever did was try. That's what I told myself. I knew it was a lie. And I think that's fantastic, because I feel that way a lot of times with my business, with music, with my family, with friends and loved ones. I feel like all I do is try. All I do is give my best, and sometimes things don't work out the way I want to. And then the reality is, usually that's a lie. Like, am I really doing my best? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that lyric spoke to me there. So that's one of the things I really like about Face to Face. Are the lyrics, the songs. They're all good. It's kind of an album I can just put on and listen to beginning to end, and everything is good. But there are some standout tracks. Track 5, Anonymous. I really like Anonymous. It just feels good. It hits me in the feels. It's got some cool guitar riffs, incredible bass lines. We're going to talk more about the bass lines in a little bit, but that track really stands out to me. Vertigo, track 8, and then the final 3 songs, Spit Shine, This Is My Vanishing Act, and Farewell Song. I think Spit Shine was like a kind of like a single that they released. That was one of the first tunes before the album came out. I love that. And Farewell Song really I think is one of their best. That's a great song right there. But overall, good. Those are the standout tracks to me. So instrumentally, we've got some great guitar riffs, some interesting guitar parts happening. Danny Thompson's drums are great, as always. Fun short story is I got involved. I own a music school here in Fort Worth, Texas. And the goal of starting my music school, one of the goals was that I would have a source of income so that eventually I could go on tour. And I'm still kind of setting that up. And I was like, man, how am I going to pull this off? Well, I found a music school owner from Southern California whose name was Danny Thompson, who was running a podcast and a business about how to successfully run a music school. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And he would talk about how he plays in a band and how he would go on tour and how he's able to do that because of his music school. And then he mentioned it was a punk band. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I was like, wow, he's from Southern California. I wonder if he plays in any bands I listen to. And sure enough, one day he goes, yeah. So my band, Face to Face, and I was like, wait a second. Not the Face to Face that I've been listening to for 15 years. And sure enough, I was like, wow. So I'm studying how to run a music school from the drummer of Face to Face. So pretty cool. So I've gotten to meet him in person a couple times when they've come through Dallas. And by the way, Face to Face, one was an acoustic show at Three Links in Dallas, and that was great. And then the other one was at Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, and they just... I won't say who else was on the bill that night, but Face to Face blew everybody away. They are such a great live band. The energy was incredible. And then the real standout instrument to me on this album, though, is the bass. Scott Shiflett, who I almost said anyway, who some of you may recognize as the brother of Chris Shiflett, who plays guitar in the Foo Fighters. But he probably is like, I don't want to hear about my brother. I don't know. Anyway, Scott Shiflett, his bass lines are just fantastic. His bass tone is perfect, really punchy and really cuts through, but still fills out the bottom end. And he writes really interesting lines that aren't distracting from the song, but I find myself, as I'm listening to the songs, paying attention to the bass line more than anything. So really cool. So overall, great album, Face to Face, No Way Out, but through another solid entry into their discography. I definitely recommend it. Okay, so let's talk about Propagandhi's latest release. Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes. And yes, I am aware this is actually not a new offering. This is a 20th anniversary reissue. They have remastered and remixed the album, which I didn't have a problem with how it sounded back then, but I guess they did. So my introduction to Propagandhi, like Face to Face, was when I was in college. I was living in Boston, working at the Virgin Record store, and they were closing down. This was the great downfall of CD stores, right? I grabbed a bunch of like No Effects and Lagwagon, and Propagandhi was one of the bands I had never listened to, but I'd heard about. And I got their album, Potemkin City Limits, and it blew my mind. I had never heard a punk band like this before. In fact, it's hard. It almost is a disservice to the band to call them a punk band, but I definitely wouldn't call them a metal band. I feel like that's an even greater disservice to them. They're just like the most progressive punk band in existence, and they play really complicated music, and they have really deep, complex lyrics, but at the same time, it's very accessible to a punk rocker, I think, in that you can just get on board with the energy and the feel of it. So I didn't actually hear this album for the first time until just a couple years ago, like probably in 2017 or 2018. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the album that really solidified their transition from like 90s skate punk band to being just, in my opinion, one of the greatest bands in the world and one of my top 5 favorite bands ever. They really stand on their own. Less talk, more rock sort of started to see that transition into this more progressive side of them. And then this album, I think, is what really sealed the deal into this new iteration of the band. So this album, beginning to end, is incredible. There's not really a skippable song on it, and by the time you get to the end, you just want to listen to it all over again. You know, some albums you get to the end and you're like, okay, cool, I'm done. This album, I got to the end of it and I was like, let's do it again. It's just that good. What's interesting about their lyrics is it's not like they have verse, chorus. Sometimes musically they'll do that, but the lyrics don't do that. The lyrics, when you read them, it just seems like this poetry lyric dump of just ideas. Like it's just flowing and nothing really repeats. And so they're sort of like, okay, we have a melody for the verse, we have a melody for our chorus and for our bridge or whatever. Whatever lyrics happen to come up during that part of the melody, we're going to sing those lyrics with that melody, if that makes sense. So it makes it very hard to sing along with a lot of the songs, but I will say I do like to sing Back to the Motor League at the top of my lungs in my car for sure, especially on my 6-disc CD changer Bose surround sound system from in my 2011 car. I have a very nice car that's 10 years old, okay? It's a great vehicle. It's hard to pick standout tracks because everything is so good, but I really like Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, Back to the Motor League, With Friends Like These, Purina Hall of Fame, and Mateo, the first track, whatever the heck it's called. And then the other cool thing is when you get a physical copy from these guys, I like that this is a big fat booklet. It's got this great quote on the back from where they got their title, Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes. You've got a page for lyrics for each song. Some of them have artwork to go with them, which are disturbing and wonderful. And then the credits and acknowledgments. And then they have analog resources and digital resources. So these are the books that inspired the subject matter here. And then these are some of the websites where you can get involved with some of these things. So it's cool because the songs, while very personal to these guys, I think, are not universally relatable. But at the same time, they are. If you don't want to look at something quite as introspective and you want to pay attention to what's going on in the world, and they write a lot about a lot of injustices that we're not always aware of, that are kind of hidden underneath the surface. And so I love that. I love that you can just enjoy this band on the surface level, but if you want to go deeper with what's going on behind the songs, you really can. All right, that's what I think of the latest from Face to Face and Propagandhi. Let me know your thoughts. This isn't something I do very often, but I wanted to talk about these albums because I only have like 2 punk rock friends in real life. And I don't know, maybe we'll do this more. Let me know if there are other punk rock albums I should be listening to right now, and maybe you guys can help me keep up with what's going on in the world of punk rock. So be sure and like and subscribe if you're into it, if you're into playing guitar, if you like punk rock, if you like shred guitar, and all that good stuff. And as my great Aunt Django always says, I like to party really hard. I like my rock and roll the same. Hey, it's a kid-friendly show.